Hello, I'm Jessie, and this is the Animation Story channel. I hope you subscribe to the channel. Our film starts with two fishermen in the middle of the sea on a boat. One of them is determined to go to a specific area to fish, while the other warns him, saying there are many scary stories about that place. However, his friend, named Thomas, tells him that these are just tales to keep us away from the wonderful fishing spots. He casts the net, and suddenly a strange creature appears, trying to steal things from the boat. When the fishermen see it, they quickly hide under the water, but it gets tangled in the net, escapes from it, and runs away. Under the water, we see the hero of our film, named Luka, who screams, "Mom is going to kill me because the fish got out of its place." He starts looking for the fish and gathering them again. Luka takes his fish and goes to a place full of food to take care of the fish there. He sits on a rock, feeling bored, until he finds an old alarm clock in front of him. He picks it up and examines it curiously, and then he looks ahead and sees a playing card, so he takes that as well. Suddenly, a boat passes over him, and he screams at the fish to hide under the rock. Luka's mom calls out to him, saying, "Lunch is ready!" He hides the alarm clock and the card, takes the fish, and goes back home. He greets his dad, mom, and grandmother, and they all sit down to eat. Luka asks where the ships come from, and his grandmother starts talking about the sea monsters and ships, saying that she defeated one before. Just before she finishes her sentence, Luka's mom yells, "Enough!" and warns Luka, saying, "Curiosity kills, and the fish that has curiosity is easy to catch. It's better not to think or talk about the land." Luka returns the things he found, but suddenly, a person in a diving suit appears in front of him. Luka is very startled, but he discovers that this is not a human. It's a creature like him, but disguised. The creature takes the item from Luka's hand and runs away. Luka follows him and finds that he has emerged from the water, pulling Luka along with him. They both transform into humans, and Luka is very shocked. The boy explains to him that this is Luka's first time on land, outside of the water. Luka feels very annoyed and tells him that this is forbidden, then returns to the water. The next day, after much hesitation, he decides to go out of the water with the boy, whose name is Alberto. Alberto tries to teach Luka how to stand and walk. After many attempts, Luka succeeds, and Alberto begins to show him the advantages of being on land. He tells him, "Here, there is sky, and you can jump, and there is sunlight." Luka enters Alberto's house and is amazed by the details inside. He sees a picture on the wall and asks Alberto, "What's that?" Alberto replies, "That's the greatest invention made by humans. It can take you anywhere, and it's called a motorcycle." Luka and Alberto agree to make one like it. After they finish, Luka returns to the water and promises Alberto to come back tomorrow. When Luka gets home, his mother asks him where he has been. He gets flustered, but his grandmother tells her, "I sent him to get something for me." Luka thanks his grandmother for saving him from the situation. The next morning, Alberto decides to try the motorcycle, and Luka is very scared. However, Alberto tells him that it was a lot of fun, even though the motorcycle broke. They agree to make a new one. Luka's family discovers that he doesn't go to work every day after they follow him and find him on the water's surface. Then, Alberto tells Luka, "We have to try the motorcycle together this time." Indeed, they ride the motorcycle and soar into the sky among the birds, but they eventually fall into the water. At night, Luka and Alberto sit together, watching the sky and the stars. Luka points to the stars and asks Alberto, "What's that?" Alberto replies, "That's a little fish, and the big fish protects it. I touched it once." So, Luka says to him, "Your life is much more amazing than mine. I've never been anywhere. I only dream of places." Alberto replies, "But you're here now." Luka responds, "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here or see any of this." Luka then asks Alberto, "Have you ever been to the human city?" Alberto replies, "No, but my dad told me all about it." Luka says, "You're lucky to have a dad like yours." He thinks for a moment and says, "It would be great if we had a real motorcycle." That night, Luka goes to sleep and dreams that he touched the big fish, He wakes up startled and quickly goes down to his home under the water. His mom sees him as he enters and shows him the alarm clock and the playing card. His dad tells him, "You must promise us that you won't go up again." Suddenly, Luka's uncle, named Ugo, appears. Luka's mom decides to send him with Uncle Ugo to the bottom of the ocean as a punishment, to stay there for 2 seasons. This annoys Luka, and his mom says she will make it 3, but Luka remains silent and walks away. Luka goes to his friend Alberto and tells him what happened. Alberto suggests they go live together in the human city, where his family won't be able to reach him. There, they'll see many motorcycles and might even own one, and they will be free. Nobody will control them. Luka is scared of the idea, but Alberto encourages him, saying, "Don't worry, we'll be together." Luka and Alberto arrive at the city, and Luka is amazed as he gazes at the streets and people. But suddenly, he sees pictures and statues of fishermen, and he gets terrified. He tells Alberto, "This place is dangerous and scary." Suddenly, they see a motorcycle with someone riding it, and a child asks Luka to throw him the ball. When Luka throws it, it hits the motorcycle, and the motorcycle owner rushes over to check on him. He mocks Luka and Alberto for their clothes and the smell of fish coming from them. Alberto objects, and the man takes Luka to the fountain, saying, "You need some water to smell nice and clean up." Luka is very afraid and tries not to touch the water. Suddenly, a girl appears, and the man annoys her by telling her she failed because she lost the race. The girl gets upset and takes Luka and Alberto with her. At that moment, they hear the police talking about an incident involving sea monsters and the reward for capturing one. The man says, "I'm the one for competitions and rewards. I'm going to win." The girl tells Luka and Alberto, "You're here for the Port Rosso competition for sure." Then she leaves, saying she has to deliver these orders. Luka tells Alberto, "We need to enter the competition to win a motorcycle like that stupid guy we saw." They follow the girl named Julia and ask her if they participate in the competition. Will they get a motorcycle? She replies, "No, but you'll get money that you can use to buy a motorcycle like that." They decide to enter the competition, but Julia warns them, saying, "You have to defeat Ercole, the guy you saw a while ago, and nobody can defeat him but me." The competition is very tough. It has 3 stages: swimming, cycling, and eating pasta. That's why you need a team. They ask her to join their team, and she initially refuses because they are failing in their training. Luka begs her, saying that his family will send him to a very bad place, and he doesn't want to go back. After hearing Luka's words, Julia agrees to join them, saying, "I will swim, and you ride the bike," pointing to Alberto, "and you eat." Julia adds, "Now we need money from my dad to participate in the competition." They enter Julia's house and find her father cutting fish, which scares them. Julia's father talks about sea monsters, and Julia tells him that all of this is nonsense. She doesn't believe it. At the table, Julia's father asks, "Who are these?" She explains that they are her friends and that they are here for the competition. Her father refuses to let her participate, saying they don't have the money for the entry fee and that they need to sell more fish. Luka and Alberto decide to help them, saying, "We know a lot about fishing." Suddenly, a cat jumps on Luka, and Julia apologizes to him. She offers that if they need a place to stay, they can sleep in her treehouse. Luka and Alberto agree, and Luka's family emerges from the water to look for him, transforming back into humans. The next morning, Luka wakes up startled when he finds the water has returned them to their true forms. Alberto wakes up and hides from Julia and her father. They quickly dry themselves off. Julia's father asks her to deliver some orders, and he takes Luka and Alberto fishing. The cat continues to jump on Luka, who tries to push it away. Alberto glances at Julia's father's severed arm, and the father says, "I was born this way." Alberto suggests a different fishing spot, because this area has no fish, pointing to another direction and saying, "All the fish are over there." They succeed in catching a lot of fish, making Julia very happy because they can finally participate in the competition. Meanwhile, Luka's family is in the city searching for their son, while Luka, Julia, and Alberto Go to register for the competition and listen to the details. Suddenly, Ercole enters confidently, registering for the competition and arguing with Giulia and Alberto. He tells Luka, "I eat kids like you for breakfast." Luka is frightened by his words, but Giulia doesn't care and is happy that they are entering the competition. Giulia starts training Alberto and Luka and then takes them to the sea to practice swimming. Ercole and his team arrive with their boat to annoy them, and Alberto falls into the water. He sees Ercole's tail but manages to cover Luka and dry him off before Giulia can reach the boat. Meanwhile, Luka's mother tries to get water on all the children to find out which one is her son. Luka hears her voice, recognizes her, and gets scared, saying to Alberto. But Alberto reassures him, saying, "It's impossible for them to come here." Alberto goes to help Giulia's father, while Giulia sits with Luka and tells him that she feels they will win the competition. She asks him why he wants a motorcycle. He replies, "Because I want to ride it everywhere with Alberto and watch all the fish in the sky." Giulia responds, "I want to win so no one sees me as a failure again or as an oddball. By the way, what's in the sky isn't fish." She takes a telescope and shows him the stars, explaining that they are not fish but huge fiery spheres like the sun. At that moment, Luka realizes that Alberto was wrong, and he imagines himself flying among the planets and stars. Giulia begins to explain the solar system and galaxies to Luka. He asks to borrow her book about the universe, and she says, "Consider it yours now," as she crosses out her name and writes his. Alberto calls out to Luka, and Luka goes to tell him that the stars aren't fish, but Alberto doesn't believe him. He says, "Come, let me show you the motorcycle we're going to buy." Luka replies, "I want to go to school." Alberto is surprised and says, "We don't want school or anyone. We just need freedom." Suddenly, Archie appears and says, "You're hiding something. I know there's something unknown behind you." Archie hits Alberto, and when Luka tries to defend him, Archie intimidates them, saying, "You need to leave here because this is my city." Luka and Alberto run away quickly. The next morning, they return to training with Giulia, while Luka's family continues searching for him. This goes on every day until one day, Luka sees his mother while he's riding with Giulia and Alberto. He runs away quickly and then sees a train. Giulia tells him that this train goes to Guano, and he asks if it's near her school. She replies, "Yes, but it costs money." Alberto gets annoyed with Giulia and takes Luka to ride the bike, but they fall into the water. Luka gets angry at Alberto after they come out of the water, saying, "Nothing happened. This city has driven you crazy. We're going to win and get the motorcycle and leave." Luka responds, "But I want to go to school." Alberto yells back, "You can't go to school." And they start to argue. Giulia enters happily, relieved that they are still alive after falling into the water. He asks if it would be okay for him to go to school with her. "That's a great idea," she says. But Alberto is upset. He replies, "Will your school accept sea monsters?" Luka tries to silence him, but fails, and Alberto jumps into the sea. Giulia discovers their true nature and is startled when she sees Alberto in his real form. Soon, Ercole and his team arrive, attempting to catch Alberto, but he escapes. Luka returns home with Giulia and asks her father about Alberto. Luka explains that Alberto has left and isn't coming back, so her father decides to go look for him. Giulia splashes water on Luka, confirming that he is a sea monster, and urges him to run away. "You know my dad is hunting you, so you must escape." Luka goes to Alberto's old house and apologizes, but Alberto refuses to accept it. Luka asks about the marks on the wall and learns that Alberto has been living alone all this time, abandoned by his father. Alberto insists he doesn't need anyone in his life because he is the troublemaker that nobody loves. He tells Luka to leave. Luka decides to split the team and competes alone, putting on an iron suit before the swimming competition begins. The competition starts, and he finishes the swimming stage, moving on to the food stage. He completes it and reaches the cycling stage. Ercole tries to provoke Giulia, but she keeps going. It starts to rain, and Luka's family hides under a table, while Luka seeks shelter under a canopy. Suddenly, he sees Alberto holding an umbrella and runs towards him. Ercole pushes Alberto, and the umbrella users transform. The townspeople are shocked as Alberto falls into a fishing net, but Luka rushes to him on his bike. Ercole chases after them, and Julia tries to catch up with her bike, knocking Ercole off before he can harm Luka and Alberto. She falls as well, and they all return to support Julia and check on her. The people gather, and Julia's father arrives. Ercole declares, "These are monsters, and they must die." Julia gets upset and insists, "They're not monsters." Julia's father decides to announce Luka and Alberto as the winners, but Ercole refuses, saying, "They aren't even human. They shouldn't win." Luka's family arrives to embrace him, and the announcement of Luka's team winning the competition is made. The city reconciles with the sea monsters and hosts them. Luka and Alberto achieve their dream and get a motorcycle. Julia leaves Luka a collection of books to learn from, and they decide to surprise him. He agrees to go to school. Alberto sells his motorcycle and gives Luka the money as a ticket to Gunwan so he can go to school with Julia. Alberto bids Luka farewell and hugs him as Luka boards the train to pursue the dream he has long held. If you have reached this point, I hope you subscribe to the channel and give it a like. See you in the next episode. Bye!